Since I posted a video. The reason for that is I was trying to gather every single bug in the game with video proof showing what it is and why it's a problem. I've gathered those clips, but unfortunately I don't have an editor that allowed me to put it together in a format that I liked. It was very choppy. I ended up with a bunch of just random clips merged all together. It wasn't pretty. All of this comes from watching Rebby Red read a Reddit post the other day about problems with Dauntless. And after hearing that list, I realized that only about 20% of the things that I know to be problems in the game were on that list. Um, so basically what I'm going to do is I have a notepad here that I've basically written down every single bug in no particular order whatsoever that I've come across in the current version of Dauntless. Some of them I can show you right from the menus, but really I'm just going to be talking to you in this video. I'm not going to bother showing video proof. I have it if anybody needs further documentation to show what the issues are, but I don't feel that we're ready to move out of beta. I love the game. I offer a lot of criticism. I offer criticism constructively most of the time because I do want to see them fix it. I do want to see the game progress. But that doesn't mean that I don't have my issues with certain things. Some of my things here are just what I view as design or implementation flaws. The rest of it are truly bugs, glitches with the game that need to be corrected. And I will try to let you know which is which, but let me pull up my notepad here and we'll start from the top. Plain and simple. Let's go with the simplistic stuff. The chat window, ever since the last update, is getting cut off at the bottom of long messages. Basically, there's an extra space between lines, and it gets cut off on the bottom of the screen. It's fine once it registers that it's not a new message anymore. It kind of squishes it back together. But if there's a couple of people making long line posts or comments in the chat, they overlap. It's horrible. That's definitely a bug. It needs to be fixed. There's a lot of text issues recently. And we'll get to some of those as well. The chat window, this is just a design thing, but it's often hard to read depending on what you have in the background and depending what the lighting is like. For me, I need some opacity settings. I would like to be able to turn that chat window black so I could read it when it's open. I don't care that it's see-through now, but just some settings to allow me to fix that and set it to my own desires would be wonderful. The feedback and the bug report windows do not show text that you input. When you're typing in a field, you type out your message, you hit the button, and it looks like nothing got inputted. But if you hit up or down to move to a different field, suddenly it pops up. But again, that text will not word wrap. And that's true for both the bug report window and the feedback window. So you get most of your message, but you can't read the rest of it because it goes off the screen. That happened with the last update. Let's see. RAMs. It's been brought up a million times, but before we can move out of beta, we need a way to spend RAMs. You give us 5,000 RAMs off and on during certain levels of the hunt pass. We get RAMs for every fight, and we still have yet to have the means to spend any of them. I have more than 1 million RAMs right now. Give me a shop that I can buy resources, that I can buy Wrathwort, that I can buy Omnistone, something. That would appease me. Boom, I can spend RAMs, we can move on. I mean, we have 7 different ways to interface the shop menu in town, but not a single way to spend RAMs. And, wait, let me take that back. When upgrading weapons and armor, you do use a very small amount of RAMs. But to get the resources to craft those weapons gives you more hunts and more RAMs than it actually costs to spend them. So RAMs are null and void in that point. But just before somebody goes, no, they're used here. No, I need a way to actually spend them. I'm accumulating them. I want to spend them. I'll get off that rant now. We'll move right along. First person mode. There's a hit detection problem when another player walks into the same space that you're in. Suddenly, you switch to first person mode. Now, I've had players pace back and forth on my character just to glitch my screen in and out of first person mode. Really obnoxious, really irritating. Or if I'm sitting in a place that has a lot of people, every time they run through me, like at the beginning of town, they'll run past me or jump through me. It switches to first person for a split second. Really messes with things. This also happens in the battlefield. You get too close to a tree, too close to a wall, too close to the behemoth. Suddenly you're in first person mode and you're swinging, but you're not hitting the behemoth. Why? Because you're not actually close enough. But you can't tell that because you can't see your character. That's a problem. Also, along that same line, every once in a while you're fighting a behemoth, especially a large behemoth like Volumir or Pangar or Boreas, you're up close to them. Suddenly your camera flips to be staring upwards at their underbelly. There's no reason for this. It's not helpful to the player. It doesn't make anything better. It's just really obnoxious. Sometimes it will flip your camera around to the direction you're not fighting in. So if you're holding a direction for some reason, suddenly you're walking away from the behemoth when you should be fighting them. That needs to go away as well. This happens a lot if you're near a wall. Suddenly it flips your camera view. And sometimes not only will it flip your camera view, but it will also set you in first person. Obnoxious. Make it go away. And before somebody goes, well, just go into your settings and switch your field of view. Guess what? Consoles don't have a field of view option. We have nothing to help that issue. I would love to have a field of view option. I would love to be able to fix it myself. I'd shut up if I could fix it myself. But I can't. So it needs to be fixed by the devs. Give me the field of view option so I can fix it, or fix it from happening in the game. Oh, let's see. Weapon Mastery Affinity. The text currently isn't word wrapping on the Weapon Master Affinity. So basically, you will find that you can't read. It's like do 40 million damage using A, and then where it says shock weapon or terror weapon, it's inside the checkboxes. And it's true for every weapon. It's horrible, and it's not the same spacing for every weapon. Like, it moves around. It's just really bad. And it's probably based on where the checkboxes are. Like, I have some of them more filled out than others. But, again, the word wrapping needs to be fixed. When switching through your Behemoth Mastery, as you switch across the different Behemoths, it says that you have the same amount of prestige experience for each one, even though the bars are different lengths, and they're different. Obviously, something's not carrying over. Now, that experience is also, if you drop down from Behemoth Mastery to Weapon Mastery, it also says that your weapons that you've already completed the ticket on, or the mastery screen on, their bar has the same amount of experience, which is probably Boreas's. Really obnoxious, needs to be fixed, was broken in the last patch. It used to switch between saying Behemoth Mastery at the top and the level, and if you went down it said Axe Mastery in the level. Well, it now always says Behemoth Mastery, always shows the level of Behemoth, even though the experience bar up there is obviously changing for each weapon type. That needs to be fixed as well. Let's see. What else do we have here on this list? The Middleman. Oh my gosh, Middleman issues abundant. So, let's start right out with destroying cells at the Middleman. The circle that goes around the X, signifying when it will be destroyed when it finally hits the full circle, it only gets about 20% and then stutters. If you keep holding the button, it will destroy the cell and convert it to Aether Dust. When that happens, it locks the whole game for 4 to 5 seconds each time you destroy a cell. Absolutely horrendous. Really, really bad. I can't even imagine what caused something like that, but it definitely needs to be fixed. So, also, um, there's a warning once you get 2,000 Aether Dust. If you try to destroy a cell, it pops up a warning that says you will not receive any Aether Dust for destroying this cell. Please confirm. Well, the confirm button is the X button, which is the one that on PlayStation I'm already holding to destroy the cell. So I'm holding the button to destroy the cell. It pops up the message, auto confirms the message, and the cell gets destroyed and I get no Aether Dust. This needs to be, it's a design issue, needs to be a triangle button, circle button, any button that's not the X button that I'm already holding. I've ranted about this before, but it still needs to be fixed. On top of which, I don't believe that the middleman needs 3 types of currency. When buying a cell, for some reason it defaults to platinum. I've heard people say that this is unethical because they've actually spent platinum when they didn't mean to on buying a cell. There's no reason for him to even have platinum on his list. Aether Dust shouldn't be a thing either. You destroy a cell, level 1 cell, you get 1 ace chip, level 2 you get 2 ace chips, level 3 you get 3 ace chips. The whole middleman should run on ace chips. Buy cells using ace chips. Destroy cells, get ace chips. Don't have enough ace chips to buy what you want from him? Oh, buy ace chips for platinum in the store. Then the whole store menu pops up and you're aware that you're going to spend real money for real platinum to get ace chips to buy your cells. Also, there's a huge issue with cells and the balancing. I get 1 to 4 cells almost every fight, level 1s usually. I have so many of them, I destroy them all the time without getting any Aether Dust, just because I got to get rid of them. I have 130 or so cores that I haven't even opened because I have so many cells, and there's nothing new coming out that's being put in our regular cell lineup. They're all going into the Lady Luck. So I have no reason to open cores. I have more cells than I could ever use. I don't know of anybody who's struggling to get a cell unless they're at the beginning of the game. That's a problem too. That the balancing needs to be worked out in that. Moving right along though, away from the middleman. This has been mentioned by a ton of people, but on console, the interact button and the jump button are the exact same button. So if I go to pick something up, like Wrathwort in the field, I might jump instead of pick it up. Or let's say I went to jump over a little ledge, but for some reason there was some sort of consumable there. Well, I picked it up instead. So instead of jumping, I picked up this random thing that I probably didn't need and fell off the map. This is a simple fix. Basically, we have the ability to sheath and unsheath weapons. If the weapon is sheathed, the light attack button should be your interact. If the weapon is not sheathed, then it should be a light attack. That way, jump and interact are different buttons. They are on the computer, they should be on the console. I realize this makes a little bit of a learning curve because we've all gotten used to it. It means in picking people up in the field that you would actually have to go ahead and sheath your weapon to pick somebody up. To me, that makes sense. Put your weapon away, pick somebody up off the ground, pull the weapon back up. Yes, that makes a longer window for picking somebody up. They could easily shorten the window of how long it takes to revive them to compensate. Moving right along. Shops that are listing level 15 weapons and armor. It's saying basically they have a +6 perk. They don't. Absolutely do not. Things like Embermane's Pike said that it does 600 wound damage. It does 300. It's doubling the effects. On top of which, it's also showing that the weapons have whatever your current cells are in the weapon that you have on your loadout. So it could say that this weapon has a +6 knockout and has +3 overpower and +3 predator because you happen to have overpower and predator as cells on whatever weapon you have right now. That's absolutely horrible too. That needs to be fixed. Armor is the same way. It shows the cell. That's bad. The cell should never even equate into that, especially when it can't be equipped. You know, these two cells don't even fit in the item you're looking at. So there's no reason to list them. There is an issue when you go into the shop that the weapon level doesn't show. It shows, instead of, doesn't show +0, doesn't show +1. It just, there's nothing there. And it gives you the requirements to craft the weapon at level 0 or level 1. There's no need for that either. If you exit the shop and go back in a couple of times, it will fix itself, but that's a problem with the shop. That definitely needs to be looked at. Some other things when it comes to loadouts. I'm sure everybody's experienced it. Let's say you have a hammer and you go to switch to a pike, and you're going through and you hit the R1 a couple of times to move over to pike. You're going down the list, and then suddenly, oh, the screen refreshes and you're back on hammers again. So you go back over to pike and you're looking through for the pike you want, and of course, you know, it's still trying to load the values. It's saying that some of them are only level, you know, have 25 attack or 100 attack or whatever, because they're all level 1 because it hasn't loaded it yet. And then it refreshes again. It does this a lot. All of these things should be saved somewhere static and then verified by the server. That way you can switch from weapon to weapon without it constantly bouncing you from menus. Same thing when you load up on the ship. We should never see a weapon or item listing at its base value. All of these amounts should be saved to your player profile on your system and then verified by the server behind the scenes. And if for whatever reason it finds that the file on your system is different from the one on the server, it should disconnect you to prevent tampering. And then basically forcing you, when you go to get back into the game, to wipe your settings file or your save file in order to load the one from the server. I realize that's drastic, but I know there's a bunch of cheaters out there who'll try to manipulate that file. So have it verify with the server, have it overwrite it, whatever it needs to do, but it should be in the back end. We should never see the low amounts that we see while it goes through its calculation process. Let's see. Oh, and I know that I showed this glitch, but the glitch where basically you can do something like Lunchbox or the marching band drum, or, you know, marching orders or anything like that, where you have an item in your hands. If you go and switch your character's masculinity or feminine, wow. Anyway, from masculine to feminine, and then save it. Basically, it doesn't unload those items, so when you come back, they're stuck to you. Any change to a player that's that profound, it should clear whatever current palette it's using or current emote before doing any save changes. Yes, it's funny, it's interesting to do, but it shows a lack of attention to detail. Not a big issue, just something that needs to be fixed. Another one is the whole, when you're moving in one direction and suddenly turn and go in the other direction, you start sliding or coasting or floating. That also shouldn't happen. So those are a couple other things. This has been brought up by everybody who's ever tried to get the tail or legs from Shroud. The legs are incorrect. You could hit the legs direct on and get direct white damage even though the legs aren't broken. But if you move a little bit to one angle or the other and hit them, you'll get part damage. The hitbox on Shroud's legs are wrong. This really irritated me in the last update because they spent all of that effort changing the graphics for Shroud, which I absolutely hate the new graphics. It looks like two-dimensional Scooby-Doo art. I thought the previous graphics were better. But that's just that's an opinion. But the hitbox on the legs are wrong. They could have fixed it while they were in there messing with Shroud. That would have been wonderful. If the leg hitboxes were correct, people would be able to get their Shadow Spurs. I mean, yes, there are ways to get them still, but it's a pain. The tail also has some hitbox issues, like mainly from the connection to its butt to a little bit out. It doesn't count as a tail. And then sometimes hitting other aspects of the tail doesn't count as a tail. I think the tail is fine. I think it should be hard to get. I think that the weird angle makes it interesting. Definitely it forces you to use different items like chain blades or the pike to get the tail. I think this is fine. But the hitboxes should be correct on the Behemoths. Every hitbox on every Behemoth should be gone over meticulously to make sure that they match up. Let's see. Oh, this one's an interesting one. Being hit with an ice effect by Scrave, like when he shoots ice at you or freezing at you, or even Pangar when he shoots the frost breath at you, if you happen to be immune to being frozen and you're in the middle of reviving someone and you get hit by something that should have froze you but it can't because you're immune to it, it locks you in that revival position until you dodge out of it. I mean, basically, you'll slide, like you'll move backwards and like still be trying to revive the person, and it's just not working. You actually have to dodge out of it and then go back and revive them. Ice effects from Pangar and Scrave are also causing a drop in frame rates or a lag effect. It's been noted that many players have actually crashed during fights with Pangar or Scrave due to these ice effects. There's something wrong with them. They need to be looked at. Also, on the topic of Scrave, for some reason, Scrave weapons that drop ice mines can't be triggered by Hellion. Like, you could knock Hellion down, put it right next to his head, dodge away, drops the ice mine, it doesn't blow up. He can step on them, slide on them, smash his tail into them. They will not trigger. They just sit there idle and then break. Sometimes the lava gets them, which it's supposed to do. That's fine. But they just don't work. Repeater ice mines work just fine. Work as intended. So Scrave's ice mines need to be fixed because, I mean, he's the ideal person to use them against because he's a fire type. You want to use ice against him. This has been reported a ton of times. Players who jump from a high point, especially when they're coming off of an Aether Vent, or they jump from the platform. The waterfall level is a good one for that, where like it's basically just climbing up and up and up. If you jump off at the right spot and you hit an Aether Vent on the way down, or it pops you back at the air, it thinks you fell off the world and it will load you back onto the edge. Sometimes you don't even have to hit the vent. You just leap off. You drop down like 1.5 levels and suddenly it thinks you've fallen off the world. That needs to be fixed too. Basically, if there's land below you, it should allow you to land. Plain and simple. There's a couple of crash bugs. Basically, sometimes when a player loads into a hunt, they'll already be on the emote arrival screen before anybody else arrives. And when the hunt begins, that player can't see their health or their lantern charge. And basically, if the fight goes beyond the first round or beyond like 4 minutes and 10 seconds or something like that, the player will crash out. There's another crash bug with the shops. Sometimes after you've been playing for a while, you go into one of the shops. For whatever reason, there seems to be a memory leak somewhere, and it just crashes you out. Like blue screen of death, boom, game's crashed. It hasn't been as bad since they changed the layout of the shops, but it is still happening. There's some issues with the arrival emotes. There's a couple in here I marked specifically. Like the Aether for I meant to do that or hang time. When in a group of 4, that first person has no little Aether slide. They just look like they fly in on a like a weird backpack, and it looks really weird. So that's an issue. The timely arrival when in a group of four, the first player position has no static ball. The second player position is actually in front of them, like off to the side where player one is, which is really weird. Um, there are issues with the treasure I landed, or whatever that's called, you know, when you land in the treasure chest. Um, Axes and hammers are clipping through it, depending on the position. Like if you're position 3 or position 2 or 3, basically the weapons are clipping through it. I mean, not a huge issue, but definitely should be looked at. The Koshai lantern in the shop or loadout is extremely dark and shadowed, really hard to see. Though if you go into the lantern shop in the full view, it's a really nice looking lantern. I wish they could take that image, you know, and put it as the icon so you can actually see the greens and the purple. All the other lanterns look fine, but that one, for whatever reason, is just all dark and shadowed. You can't see it. Viewing flares from the hunt pass or the shop can't be seen because it's showing the Slayer and not the sky. Though if you go into flares from the personality menu, they're fine. Everybody's aware that repeater skins don't show up in any of the shops or stores, Lady Luck, any of that. That's been an issue for a long time. Don't worry, we're getting somewhere. You know, I realize I've been rambling for a long time here. I'm trying to get through this as quick as possible. You can understand why making this video, or making a video with all these examples, was time consuming, and why I didn't get it done. So I just figured I'd talk to you about every little piece. Heroic dies. You can actually be awarded to Slayers who already have them. Sometimes they can be awarded multiple times in a single fight, like 2 or 3 times. This shouldn't happen. If there's specific items that you can only get once, if it's gonna award them again, it should give you something else in its place. Arc stones that are equal to the level you were just fighting, like extra arc stones, a random break part, something else that's, you know, 2 platinum, I don't care, whatever, 2 ace chips, something unique that you normally don't get. But I've gotten so many dies so many times, and I have them all, except for the one they haven't released. So please stop giving them to me. When you load onto the airship, apparently this doesn't happen to people who have a computer, but for us console players, when people load onto the airship, sometimes they're in a free fall motion, and they just keep free falling. Or it looks like when somebody first lands on the ground, like they do that little boom, and it does that over and over and over again. It's really weird. That should be looked at. But again, this is console stuff. Apparently, we're last of their priorities. I mean, I would love to be a beta tester for the consoles and show them these are issues, these are how to fix them, or this is where you're getting the issue from. Here's the debug log. I would love to work for Phoenix Games and say, hey, here's my reports, please fix these. Make it great for the PlayStation and Xbox users, because they're part of your income. You need to appease them. You can't just cater to your computer people. I realize you favor your computer people, but you need to pay attention to us too. Many of the Behemoths, especially the Heroic Plus ones, they're not calculating elemental bonuses correctly. When using a shock weapon on Koshai, it shows 550, even when I have a plus 15 shock weapon, so it should be 630. Rezakiri shows 510 when using a 550 Umbral weapon, when it should be 630, so it's actually less when using an Umbral weapon. I don't know if they meant to, but armor's not calculating at all. That should kind of be done. You know, there's a lot of things here, and you would think they'd be able to get that correctly. It's shock, you're using Terra. It's Terra, you're using shock. It's Radiant, you're using Umbral. You know, or it's Radiant, you're using Radiant. They should have been able to get all of this right. And I know we wanted that feature for a long time to show what the actual total was, but... and we got it, but now it's not right. So why have it? Because we can't rely on it. This one's kind of cool. I don't know if this was intended, but to me it seemed a bug. Sometimes when the Skullforge is hidden, it still sets the player's head on fire. I mean, it looks really cool, but I don't know if that was the intended effect. Maybe it is, and it's not a bug at all. In which case, kudos. That's awesome. Um, Blue breakpart orbs can't be seen on snow or ice locations. Like, you'll break a piece, and you can stare right at the ground. You basically have to put a shadow over it in order to see the orbs. I realize that the game collects them for you now. They didn't used to. But they don't collect everything. Like, your extra... Like, sometimes there's a breakpart orb. You'll get the item plus, like, 3 shining arcstones. When the game collects it for you, you get the breakpart, but you don't get the shining arcstones. So you still want to pick them up, but you can't see them. These should be bright neon colors, glow in the dark, little lights and sparkles coming off of them, a beam that shoots up in the air, something so I can see where my breakparts are. If you want me to collect them, by all means, let me see them. So irritating when they're under parts or they're in the grass where you can't see them at all. They're in the snow or the ice and they're the same color. It's bad design. Needs to be fixed. I realize that Rebby Red said that he doesn't view this to be an issue with the Behemoths, but more so the maps. He thinks that certain Behemoths should have certain map locations to prevent this. I disagree. Behemoths should have the same collision settings as the Slayers. If it's a wall to a Slayer, it should be a wall to a Behemoth. It should bend their tail, and not this weird, like, 90-degree bend that I've seen it do randomly, but actually bend it so, like, when they back up, it bends their tail in an arc, and then maybe they can't back up anymore because their tail's already bent. I have had Boris all but his head inside of a mountain. I have had Rezakiri be floating above me in the air because it was on a slope where we couldn't reach it while it was actually on the ground. Like, we had knocked it down and it was floating in the air where we had to jump up and hit it because whatever reason, that slope, all the time its tail is in the ground in a wall where we can't hit it. Getting that Aether gem is a pain. It happens with Pangar, it happens with Hellion, it happens with Nasher. Anything that's got a large tail on it, it gets stuck in a wall. Drives us crazy. It has to be fixed. The slope, when something falls down, there is no reason it should not be laying at an angle on the slope as if it was a real creature and laying down on the slope. This should not be a static image that they're just kind of setting on the map. This should go with the terrain. You know, just as the Slayers go up and down the slope, the Behemoths should go up and down the slope. Hellion's volcanic little spouts, we can't walk through them. Hellion shouldn't be able to just walk through them or end up in them where we can't hit them. Those are things that need to be corrected. Let's see. Trials. Oh, this has been fun. Most recently, we have Shrike in the trial. And Shrike, as we're jumping out of the airship to the landing pad, hucks a projectile and kills one of us instantly. Say what? The timer hasn't even started yet. We're not in the match. We can revive the person. They have to use 2 potions to get their health back to full. At that point, do we just reset? No, because there's a benefit to this. For some reason, even though we shouldn't have any revives, that person who got downed right there gets 3 revives. Trade 2 potions for 3 revives? Absolutely. Should this happen? Never. There's no reason the Behemoth should be able to hit us on the landing pad. Sometimes the landing pad doesn't have the vent to shoot us across. And we have to close out of the game entirely and log back in This happened to us 6 times in a row one day while trying to do trials. You know what? We said screw trials. If you want us to do trials, these bugs have to be fixed. There's way too many issues. And currently the Styxians, they worked fine with Koshai. They stayed away from him. They're not staying away from Shrike. I mean, they are right up its butt. They're all around it. I was under Shrike's wing attacking him and got pounced on by a Styxian. That's not the mechanic at all. I'm not playing this week's Dauntless. It's just irritating. It's not fun. It's shitty. That's the way it feels. It's shitty. It's a waste of potions, waste of resources, especially when I can't buy them. I have to go back out and pick up more Wrathwort and waste my time doing that. No, I'm just not doing it. So, fix these things if you want people to play them and enjoy them. Let's see. Sigil flags clip through their posts and stands. This should never happen. I like the wind effect. I like the way it blows it kind of so it wraps around. That's fine. But there's no reason it should clip through the stand. We talked about weapons and armor showing levels. Oh, as you're walking around town, sometimes you'll see a random floating crown or one of the little Z's, like the laser kind of thing from the sigil, or random floating orbs of some type that were part of some sort of emote. All these things, but the player's nowhere to be found. Like the crowns are there, or the flag, little laser sigil light thing is there, but there's no flag, there's no player, there's no nothing. It's just left over. I've been out in the field in a hunt, and there's randomly been like a molten effect floating in the air somewhere. And I've got videos of these things. It's really weird. I mean, I think I've already posted a couple of them on my channel, but they still exist. Like, this problem is still happening. No idea why. Let's see. Oh, this one's fun. If you idle out of the game, which is why occasionally you see I keep moving my person around or adjusting like the camera. It's so I don't idle out of the game, because it doesn't register that chat is actually sending data to the game. So while I'm sitting here chatting, it could log me out. But if you do get logged out and come back in, log back in from the menu, sometimes your chat messages don't work. You go to send a message to your guild. Nope. Can't. Unable to send message. You have to close the game out entirely and restart it. Really bad. Also regarding idling out, one of the great things about PlayStation is it lets us hit a button and like share a clip. And it could take me like 30 seconds just to edit the clip and send it, like post it to my YouTube or whatever. 30 seconds. Or just to edit it and save it. As soon as I go into that editor, it kicks me out of the game and says that I've been idled. That really sucks. Because it means that I can't actually save the clip and edit it. I find myself just saving the clip and coming immediately back into the game so I don't get kicked out. Because when you get kicked out of the game, it erases your video cache. Which means that you lose the video. That's bad. And I don't know if that's a PlayStation thing or how the game works, but somebody should look at that too. That made me mad when that happened to me. Sometimes when players are joining a group, let's say you send them an invite, but you're already heading into a hunt, you come back out of the hunt, and like that player joins while you're in the hunt. When you come back out, that player's microphone's not working. You can't hear them for whatever reason. It didn't sync up your audio with their audio. But if they leave the party and then come back in, their audio works fine. There's a lot of audio issues in the game when it comes to chats. Another thing is if you go to a hunt and somebody abandons the hunt, like the leader abandons the hunt, says, hey, we're not doing this, just cancel it. Well, it disbands the whole party. You actually have to re-invite everyone. I think the leader should give the option of disbanding, the hunt they say cancel, and boop, it's canceled, and nobody goes. And anybody who hit beforehand that goes, well, they're already there. I don't know, just something. But disbanding the whole party is aggravating, especially when you can't. Let's say you queue up a hunt, it was the wrong one, it won't let you cancel. Like, it just doesn't give you that option, even though you do it right away. Most of the time, the canceling option's not there. People have brought this one up to me all the time. It happens at least once every couple of fights. Players get hit by a slam attack where they should have gotten knocked down, but instead they remain standing. But they cannot attack, they can't use consumables, even though they can move around. After about 3 to 5 seconds, they randomly fall down. And that's what you see from your screen when that happens to you. What other players see is that you've already fallen on the ground and you start sliding around for wherever you moved. And then you get back up. Really weird. Definitely shouldn't happen. If they're not sure whether I should be on the ground or not, don't wait 4 seconds. Either error in my favor or put me on the ground. One or the other. We talked about the shop's memory leak crashing the game. Oh, occasionally the mastery levels reset to 0, which makes it so you can't actually craft anything. You know how irritating that is to come back in, you've finally gotten your arc stones, you go to craft it, and oh, your mastery level is 0, so you can't craft anything. You either have to exit the game or go into another hunt and have it, when you come back out of the hunt, it should be okay again. During this time, you can't do any elemental patrols. You can't basically queue up any of those because they're not an option on your list. You're not able to change the consumables that you're using because those unlock with levels. That's a problem. It should never default to 0. We've got some individual issues with Behemoths. Like right now, everybody knows that Remain's limping around, and it's really aggravating because it's hard to fight him. He limps back and forth. He randomly charges. Sometimes he charges and attacks things that aren't there. We've seen him run in circles for a full 2 minutes. It's just been really bad. We had an issue with Rezakiri earlier where it got up on its tail and it just stood there. It wouldn't do anything else. We hit it for about a minute and a half and then it ran away. It was just weird. Like, there's some scripting issues with the way that Behemoths are working right now. People are aware that Rezakiri's lasers can sometimes hit you through the Aether Bubble shield. Valamir's lasers can actually hit you through the ground or through objects. You're standing on the other side of a tree, for some reason you get hit, even though it says the laser stops at the tree. Even if you're quite a ways from the tree, it still penetrates and hits you. It's kind of an invisible. It still hits you. If you're on a slope, or I've been up on a cliff and it shoots the laser at the side of the cliff and hits my feet where I'm standing in the middle of the cliff. The laser really bad. Issues there. Valamir, when you stagger him, there's a long time between when you get the stagger and when he falls down. It's like you're hitting, you get the stagger, and he falls down. Like, there's really that 3 or 4 second delay. This will not be a popular opinion, but in my opinion, it needs to be done. This is my own personal experience with the game. It's not a bug, but Phoenix Labs has done a wonderful job balancing all the different weapons. They really have. It's a lot of work to get things balanced so that something's not too powerful or more powerful than everything else. That being said, hammers need to be nerfed. Their damage needs to come down by about 20%. Right now they're hitting for 400 to 600 per shockwave slam. That's 4 shockwave slams, 6 if you have the extended clip. That's you know, that's a lot of damage. We're talking an average of about 3,000 damage per slam. 20% take it down. I mean, 240 per slam, a little more acceptable. That'll bring it more on balance with the other weapons. I I know everybody loves their hammer, but it really needs to be done. People, we want a variety of weapons used, and the hammer just needs to come down a little bit to make the other weapons more viable. Also, that being said, pike and chain blades have been on the low end of damage for a long time. They need roughly a 50% bump, maybe a 20% bump in power. They also need about a 15% drop in the stamina usage, because hammers and axes don't really use stamina, depending on how you use them, which makes them a much more easy weapon to use. You can just go all out, never worry about stamina, never worry about dodging, because it's the slowness of using them that causes the dodge issues, not the lack of stamina. The chain blades and the pike use up so much stamina. It makes them hard to use at times. You really have to build around it. That stamina usage needs to be dropped. Their power needs to be bumped up. I mean, they did well with the Reaper's Dance fixing it. That way, Reaper's Dance now actually does some good damage. And if you know how to use it, how to stack it, it does some amazing damage. So now it has a special that is actually worth using. The pike already had its concussive blast, which can deal out a good amount of damage fairly quickly. And plus it's great for interrupts. So just a little bit more power, a little less stamina. That will put them on par with the axes and hammers. I won't get into sword because I don't use them much. I've seen people say sword's weak. I've seen people say sword's powerful. I think it's all about how you use it and how good you are with it. I have no opinion one way or the other. I don't use sword a lot. I don't like to play it. Just because our frame rate on a console is much slower. So the whole using of dodge back and forth is much harder to do on a console than on a computer. If I had my computer hooked up and I was playing Dauntless, I'd probably like the sword. I think that covers just about everything that I had on my list here. I'm sure I've missed a couple of things because there is just that much wrong still with the game. We are so far away from being ready to leave beta. I know they want to get out of beta. I know they're excited with all the changes they're making. I'm excited for the Aether Gauntlets. I'm excited for the multi-Behemoths. I'm excited for a lot of the changes. But they keep piling changes upon changes, and they're not fixing issues that have been existing for 3 or 4 patches now. If I can help, if anybody from Phoenix Labs listens to this, Rebby Red, Odo, if you listen to this, please, I would love to help bug test this. I realize I'm not in Canada. I'm not on the west side. I'm in Maine in the US, but I would love to help in some way to bug test this and get these things fixed so that even console users can enjoy the game as the computer users have been. So that's my really incredibly long rant of problems with the game. If you feel that I've really glossed over something, please leave a comment in the field below. I will gladly respond to you. If anybody would like to see video clips of some of this stuff, I might compile something without talking, just compile a whole list of videos about here are the issues I talked about so that you can look through and see exactly what I was seeing. I thank you for your time. Again, I'm VVolvenOne, and I'll be here next time. Enjoy your slaying.